Hi, it's Mark back with another Lightroom and Photoshop tutorial, and today we're going to be looking at how to make your pictures look aged. So I took this one very recently in Jesmondine. When I say recently, I don't know when you're watching this, but it was in February of 2021. And from that I ended up editing it like this, and a friend of mine said that looked like an aged photograph. So I thought, okay, and I ended up with this. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, to convert your photos into an aged look. En route, we will also be looking at some overlays, and I've got them here. If I just go down the bottom here. So I'll show you where you get this set of overlays for free, which can be used to apply the aged look on your photographs. I'll include the images of my own down in a link below for you to play along at the same time. I can't give you these myself, but I can give you the links where you can go and get them for yourself. It just cuts me out as a middleman should they ever change. And with that said, play the titles, press pause if you want to go and grab them, get a brew ready, and we'll do this on the other side. So here we are in sunny Lightroom, and we're going to look at aging these two pictures I've randomly pulled from my library, and I've just pulled out one of the overlays. To apply the overlay, we will go into Photoshop. In fact, we might do one of these in Lightroom and one in Photoshop. But I've often thought that Lightroom can teach you things itself as you go along, and I think I included similar in one of my previous videos. So let's start this journey of aging this with this particular picture. So I'll press D for it to go into develop mode. And the sort of things I would look to do when aging things is I'd probably want black and white, but I wouldn't just click black and white. I would actually go and have a look through the various black and whites. My personal preference for aging is of a stronger contrast, so I'd probably look for a black and white that's a bit more strong, such as that. Black and white number 4. And of course, if you wanted it greater, you could always use your global slider here for how much you actually want to put in there. So that would certainly be one of the things I'd want to look at doing. I'd also want to look at putting on a white vignette to look as if things have been bleached in from the corners, as opposed to a dark vignette, which works as well, but I think in some instances I like the idea of you've had light fading in from the corner. That would be one of the things I would consider doing, and then I would look at possibly doing some color grading in the shadows and in the highlights. Let's click reset for a moment, and let's look at what resources Lightroom has already got that we can actually use. So first things, we have got some, you should have some presets in Lightroom. I'll just get rid of this. So you've got some presets in Lightroom, and some of those, such as under creative, there's one called aged photo. And just by running across the top of these, you can see what it does to your picture. So there's aged photo. Now before I click on that, if we just run over here, I have pressed reset. You saw me press reset, so that means that that will be blank. Now if I go and click on aged photo, you can see how this effect was created. The beauty about presets is there's no magic. It's all available to see. As you can see here, it has applied all those changes, and now we can start to dissect those changes and learn for ourselves exactly how it's done it. It's vibrance and saturation down. It's taken out some of the clarity quite a bit. It's bumped up the whites and brought blacks down. Other than that, it hasn't really applied much in the way of generic exposure or contrast. What else has it done? It hasn't applied the vignette. It hasn't really bumped up sharpening other than what usually comes as default. Did it add any noise? No, it hasn't added any noise. We may choose to add some noise to get a bit of a larger grain in there. So just by clicking on that, we can see how this is achieved, and then learn from that. Of course, the other beauty is that, let's assume you're happy with this, having played with it, you could then save this as your own preset with your auditions and call it, I don't know, age photo 2 or something. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You can call it the same thing because all your own presets end up being under user presets here. So what else is it can tell us? Well, firstly, I'll just close that down, giving the game away by having this one open here. Let's reset it again. And this time we will look at something like Antique Light, which I rather like. Antique Light. I think we'll go for this one first. So click on that, because I want to see what it's done. And notice here we haven't bothered with texture clarity and such. The main difference you'll find on this one is, I believe, in color grading. So these little dots tell us that your color grading might not look like this. You might have that view on or whatever. Whichever it is, these little dots tell you which ones have been changed, and indeed you can see that here. So I prefer to actually go into it, each one, and if it isn't already showing, have this drop down and you get a better understanding, so you can see what has been applied and the levels for both the shadows and the highlights. So you get a better understanding of how this effect has been achieved. So you're learning for yourself. So any preset gives you that ability to come over and unpick the knitting. However, the difference between that and, for example, applying a profile. So if I wanted to apply a modern profile, and this has nothing to do with aging here, there, because I like the look of it, and I go back in, I can't tell. It's all contained within the profile. It's far more difficult for me to understand it. Whereas presets, you have that ability to dive into it a little bit further. Okay, so let's shortcut this one. We'll spend a little bit more time on the other one, and I'll click on reset again because I can't remember exactly what I added and didn't add there. I'm going for antique because I like the general look. I will bump up the contrast because I prefer that. I will put in a slight light vignette, but only slight. I will also want to add some grain into this. So sorry, that's under effects. So I want to add some grain. Before I do that, I'm just going to zoom in. And let's add some grain. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more, 200%. And I like to have the grain a bit larger when I'm aging pictures. And a little bit rougher. Okay, so let's go back to fit. And they're happy-ish with that. Again, as with all of my videos, the actual end result, unless that is the purpose of this, you wanted to see this time bridge in a particular way, it's not about that, because everything's in the eye of the beholder. It's about these techniques. I mean, I'm showing you now how to add some grain. You might prefer your grain there. And that doesn't matter whether you like it there or whether it was there. The fact of the matter is, we know where grain is, we know how to apply it, we know what it does. Okay, so we've got that far, so let's just edit this one in Adobe. And I've already got open one of the textures. So we're going to use that one on top of this picture. So if I just click, drag it up to the top, over the tab of the other picture, bring it back down and release. Control T or Command T to put that in the middle somewhere. And let's just drag it over somewhere like this. Press enter. And then your blend mode is generally overlay. There, but just because I say that, and just because other tutorials might say that, don't take it for granted. Experiment. Soft looks different to overlay. Hard light is different again. I don't particularly like that one. Lighter color, no. Linear dodge, color dodge. There are other ones like lighten the screen you may want to try, and there's no harm in doing so. And then of course you can dilute the taste with the amount of opacity. So that is one way of adjusting this, and this is what you can't do in Lightroom. You have to come over to Photoshop to apply that. So let's jump back into Lightroom and G, and let's have a look at this particular one now. So D for develop, and I'm going to do just a little bit of an edit on this, but then I'm going to throw it over into Photoshop and look at some of the things we've already looked at, like noise, contrast and such, while we're in Photoshop. So you get to see the lion's share of this being used in both products. So I want to increase my contrast on this. I'm going to take some of the clarity out. Actually, I'm going to take some of the clarity out, but I really want the clarity left in there. Graduated filter, which I probably pull across to there. And so here will not have the effect. Here we'll have it graduated from full to fading off, and here we'll have the full effect. And the effect we're talking about is I wanted to lower the clarity and the texture. But I liked what was showing in this brickwork. If I hit O for my overlay, you'll see where the orange is, how much of the effect is applied there as opposed to here. So switch that off again, and I've preserved all this nice texture, but I've managed to soften what's going on over on the left here. Alright, so I'm just going to leave that there and pop over into Photoshop. Come on, Photoshop, thank you. Okay, so the art of aging a picture is, for me, around about black and whites, noises, contrasts, overlays, vignette, and then colour tinting. So let's do them in that order, more or less. Control J to take a copy, so we've got to get out of jail. But notwithstanding that, I'm going to right click and convert to a smart object. So let's apply a black and white filter. And what were the original colours underneath? We've got some reds and some yellows over here, which I probably want to do something with. And that's what these channels are, even though we're talking black and white. If I adjust that, you'll see over here where the yellows were, you'll see it being impacted. So I'll bring that down. And the reds on the Bridge Hotel pub, which is a great pub, by the way, if ever you're around Newcastle area and we're not in lockdown and it's open, and I guess it's getting towards a reasonable time of the day when you feel like you can have a drink rather than 9 o'clock in the morning, albeit I think they do coffees and teas as well. Okay, so I'm happy with my black and white there. I now want to add some noise. So filter, noise, very aptly named category for adding noise. Now then, I don't ever really bother what's in this little window here, because this is one of the filters where it also shows you on the whole picture. I would find it very difficult with preview off to use that to tell me what's really going on. So I tend to leave preview on. But that's far too much noise for me. I think somewhere around about 10 or 12, or well, it's close to 12. I will be pedantic though. I will type in 12, and Gaussian and monochrome is fine. So I've added a bit of noise in there. We've got an overlay to add in a second. I want to bump up a little bit more contrast. Just again, this is for taste. And I'm going to use curves rather than the actual lightness and contrast. Bring that down. And bring a touch up there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. Let's put our overlay on now. Drag it up, drop it down. And Control T or Command T. Stick it all up there. Alright, this particular overlay was obviously has the corners which used to be used to tuck photographs under and could often mark it. So, but I'm using those to just make them minimal, really, just if not off altogether. There, I'm just making it large enough so I lose those little triangles. However, if we switch this off for a second, we've got a lot of dark here. And we've got some fantastic streaks coming down here. So I'm going to swap that around. Control T, flip horizontal. And I want to get those into the dark area. There. I think I'll be happier with those in there, personally. And then change our overlay, our blend mode. Overlay, soft light, hard light. I don't think this will work, but I'm going to put on hard light for now, and I'm going to lower the opacity. No, that's washing out a bit too much for my liking, so but it's always worth a try. I think I prefer soft light to overlay. Or do I? No, I'm going to go with overlay. There we go. Some nice patterns and smudges and distortions coming in there. Finally, what about adding a bit of a colour? So we could, oops, didn't mean to click on that, Control Z. I meant to click on this one. I wasn't watching what I was doing. Let's add a photo filter on top of this. Default one that's come up is a warming one. I think that's got some merit. Incidentally, sometimes I do not preserve the luminosity, and I find that it can be a bit more dark and moody in doing this. And in this particular case, I think that's okay. But then the other thing I like to do as well is, well, firstly, there are others to try, including a sepia, but I've never really been a fan of the sepia on this particular filter. So instead, we could go for and pick a colour, and I want to pick something a bit more orange but darkened off there, something like that, and apply that. Yeah, I like that. Although, having said I liked it, I did rather like, as chance would have it, the one that came out of the box, as it were, the one that the filter had in as a default. There you are. And I'll just close that, save, get us back into Lightroom, and then whatever else you want to do in terms of adjustment to taste. Bring the highlights up a bit to burn this out. You could do this, of course, with Adobe Camera Raw filter in Photoshop. It's up to you, really. Some of the darks a bit more, and I'm going to take a little bit more texture out. There you are. I'm fiddling now, and that's of no benefit to you. What was benefit to you, hopefully, was understanding the way we were editing it, the black and white, the noise, the contrast, the overlay, the vignette, and the colouring, all of which in greater or lesser degrees go towards making and aging a photograph. I've just thought of this now. My next tutorial, or at least one to come, will be the opposite. Let's get a badly scratched or broken photograph, and let's try and restore it and repaint it. Something for me to think on, and something hopefully for you to enjoy watching when I get around to doing that one. In the meantime though, if you like these and you want to keep ahead of notifications on new ones as and when I post them, then please consider clicking on the subscribe button. And if you want to follow along, as I said at the head of the video, I will have these two pictures available as a download, free download from my website. You don't need to log in anything, you just click on the link and it'll download for you. And I will also include links to where I get some free overlays from. I can't give you them myself. I don't have permission to host them, but I can certainly point you to the host who can. And that's it. I'm going to go now, and I'm going to click on my stop recording. So bye bye.